So guys, a little bit about me competing in pageantry. I started competing in 2016 for the prelims to Miss USA. If you don't know a lot about pageantry, pageants has a lot of different pageant systems. So you have Miss USA, you have Miss Black USA, you have Miss America. Those are a lot of the different prominent organizations here in the United States. I competed for 3 years in the prelims for Miss USA here in Missouri. Unfortunately, those 3 years I did not win. Matter of fact, I did not even place, which sucks. But however, the experience was definitely great. It is true that you do meet a lot of sister queens who you do become friends. So whenever I began competing in pageantry in 2016, I knew nothing. And when I say nothing, I knew nothing about pageantry. I would ask some of the girls I was competing against for pointers and tips and things like that, and no one would want to share anything, and I couldn't understand why. Because a lot of the different facades you see on TV, you see some girls being nice, then you see some girls being mean, some girls sabotaging, and so I went into this completely unexpecting what was going to be happening the entire competition weekend. And so some girls, so in 2016 when I first started competing, of course I didn't know anything. 2017 I came back on my A game. That year I used all of that time to prep. That is the best word that I continue to do whenever you're preparing for a pageant, is to prep. I got with a pageant coach from the Pageant Planet, which they offer affordable programs for you to be able to meet with different coaches by phone or via Skype to go over interview questions, because as anyone who competes in pageantry know, interview is one of the most important aspects of pageantry, because that is your one-on-one time to get to know you. Why do you want to win? What are you about? Why do you want to represent the state that you represent? Again, that is your time to shine. Yeah, you can look great in a beautiful dress. Yeah, you can look great in a swimsuit or athletic wear, whatever those different portions of the competition is. But what kind of person are you really when you're out of the dress, out of the heels, and out of the spotlight? What are you doing with your community? What are you doing with your state? And so for me, during that time, that first year, I was definitely overweight. I had a few health issues. I had high blood pressure. I just wasn't taking care of myself physically. And so when I got there to pageant competition, that first one, I seen how girls were ripped. They looked great on stage. And I had a big complex because, one, I'm bow-legged and pigeon-toe, and being bow-legged and pigeon-toe, I carry a lot of my athleticism weight in my legs and my thighs. And so I was always a little bit skeptical whenever it came to the swimsuit portion. Prior to competition weekend, I just said, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to showcase my skills, I'm going to be the best person that I can be, because it doesn't matter what size you are. So they said. So when I came back in 2017, everyone that was already vets that had competed years and years prior to me competing and entering, they seen the difference physically. That year I came back with a 6-pack. That year I had lost 40 pounds. That year I was just in the best shape possible. I was on my A game. I had worked with a coach to go over my interview. I really studied myself to figure out who I was as a young woman, what I wanted to stand for as a state title holder, and even as a national title holder if I was blessed with the opportunity to represent the United States. And so unfortunately in 2017, my second go around, I didn't even place top 16. I didn't get the honorary awards. I didn't get anything. All I had was a partial scholarship that they offered all of the contestants at one of the state universities, and I did get a paper certificate for being a contestant in the Miss Missouri USA 2017 competition. So fast forward to 2018, my final year of me competing. During that time, they didn't know, the organization as a whole did not know if they would keep the cutoff age at 26 or if they would extend it to 27. Well, it just so happened that same year they extended the cutoff age to 27. That was the year I had turned 27, because you had to be 28 prior to a certain cutoff date. And so I was 27, so I had another shot, which would have been my third time competing. And so I was like, surely God, surely you told me in my heart, in my prayers, that I would definitely become a title holder. So this has to be it. You're giving me 3 times to compete in this pageant. I'm definitely gonna win. I already know what I'm doing. I prepped, and when I say I prepped. I was working out twice a day. I was getting up at 5 a.m. I was running. I was doing sit-ups. I mean, I was all about my business because I knew that this was my final year, and if I was gonna win, I wanted to go out with a bang, whether I won or whether I lost. I wanted to go out with a bang. I wanted to be able to say no one worked as hard as me. I wanted to be able to say that no one was better than me, regardless of whether or not I had the crown, I had the sash. So fast forward to competition weekend, I did not win. It was like, I was shocked. I was like, surely I would get an honorary award, something. This is my final year. I gave my all, and I didn't. So when I didn't win in my final year for the prelims for Miss USA, I was definitely a little disappointed in myself. However, I knew that I had given my all, and that's what truly mattered. I met all of the goals I wanted to meet for myself when it came to my fitness, when it came to my health, when it came to my mental stability, when it came to me figuring out and defining who I truly was for myself and not being shaped or conformed by what I see through the other contestants, because oftentimes when you are competing against other girls, it's automatically prone in your mind to compare yourself against someone else physically, with your looks, with your complexion, with your ethnicity. It's automatically going to happen. And so the first 2 years that did take place with me, unfortunately, but my third year, I wanted to make sure that every area I competed in, it was all about me and not inspired by anyone else. The only thing that I took from the other girls was I wanted to make sure that I was on my A game. And so tip number 1 in pageantry is, when it comes to interviews, always be your authentic self. You always want to do your best. You always want to be prepared. So for instance, if they ask you a question, you always want to answer the question and then you follow up with the why. I cannot tell you how many times people do not follow up with the why. For instance, I'm not to answer the question. Hey, Ashley, what is your favorite fruit? My response, an orange. An orange. Okay, correct way to answer that question would be, hey, Ashley, what's your favorite fruit? My response would be, my favorite fruit is orange, not only because I love the color in the springtime, but also because it provides extra nutrients whenever I am lacking my vitamin C. Boom, boom. So of course you always want to tailor your answers to fit who you really are as a person. That was merely an example. It was very much so a short question that required a short answer. You didn't provide too much information, but you also related to yourself as to why. You loved it, not only because 1, it was your favorite color, but also 2, because it provided those extra nutrients. So you stated the answer and the why. That is one of the key secrets in pageantry in interviews. I remember in one of the interviews that I had, I was given a question by a gay judge, and he asked me, how did I feel about homosexual marriage? And I told him that as a Christian, that's not something I agreed with. That's not something that I believed in. I did believe that a man should be with a woman, and then vice versa, a woman with the man. However, I did explain that everybody falls short. Everyone has a sin that they're dealing with, and everyone has to make their own decisions for themselves. Ultimately, I'm not the one to say whether my sin or someone else's sin is greater than the other. That is also up to God. And ultimately, I ended the question very well. And I actually had the judge reach out to me on social media, and he said that I had one of the best interviews, and I responded openly, and I was truthful about it. And I thanked him for that, because I did want to make sure that I still remained the Christian that I was and everything that I believed in. But however, I wanted to be able to make sure that he understood that I came from a loving standpoint when I made my answer and when I gave that to him. And he definitely appreciated that. So it's all about being who you are, being your authentic self. I always want to tell the truth, but always make sure that you do it in love, to where you're not being offensive. And that's where you have to find the balance whenever you are preparing to compete. You always want to make sure that you're touching on a lot of those hot subjects and those topics in politics that a lot of girls do not want to go ahead and dive deep into. There are so many different avenues that you can do to prepare when it comes to interview, like reading the newspaper, watching the news every day, reading different articles, seeing the debates with regards to a lot of the different topics. Tip number 2, make sure you walk your walk. What I did was, whenever I would be in the gym, I would always practice my walk. If I'm walking to one machine or another, I will be in the gym practicing my walk, getting my walk down. And with me being bow-legged and pigeon-toe, I walk a lot different than a lot of the other girls. It looks different in heels, it looks different in tennis shoes, it looks different in flats, it looks different in sandals. It just looks completely different. And so every single day, wherever I was at, I was always practicing. I remember I would be at work when I was a social worker, and I would be walking down the aisles at work practicing my walk, because I wanted to make sure that however I was going to present myself on stage, that is how I wanted to walk whenever it was time. And practice does make perfect in a sense. Tip number 3, make sure you know who you are. And I know that I'm doing a lot of these tips out of order and out of sequence, but I feel that they're all equally as important. But this one is definitely the most important. A lot of the stuff that I did was all great, but the most important thing that I could have learned was about me. Learning about my flaws, being okay with my flaws, learning that I can be confident and look completely different from past winners, knowing that I can be confident in who I presented myself to be on stage, who I presented myself to be in the interview, who I presented myself to be when I was cleaning up after other girls, when they left things a mess in the dressing rooms or in the areas where we would have our food, or when it would come to helping assist the pageant moms that would be there to help us get ready or help us sew our dress or our jumpsuit if it was ripped, things like that. That was who I was, because it wasn't about just being who you was on stage. It was about being who you was off stage as well. And so I remember a lot of what I did too. I studied the Bible a lot, and I also did a lot of journaling, and I also had to really understand, what did I stand for? Although my background looked completely different than a lot of girls, you would see a lot of girls at pageant competition weekend, they would have both of their parents there. They would have their entire family there supporting them. Every single year I competed at Pageantry, I was always there by myself, besides my very first competition in which my best friend came. So these are the top 3 tips for whenever you do become the title holder. So one of the things that I did, I had to schedule all of my events. I had to schedule all of my appearances. You definitely want to make sure you keep a calendar on your phone and keep a hard copy of your calendar if you need that extra support whenever you need to flip through the pages to see what you need to do next if you do lose power on your phone. Some of the events and appearances I had scheduled was in the morning times if I was speaking at a school, was after work if I was speaking in an after school program, or to an organization. And so you definitely want to make sure that you have more than adequate time to schedule everything down, because I did maintain a full-time job. Not every pageant system does pay you whenever you become a title holder. There are, of course, are incentives and different gifts and things like that that you do take hold of whenever you do become the title holder. However, that is not one for all for every single pageant. So make sure you read the fine print of what you get besides a crown and a sash. Tip number 2, whenever you do get your contract, prior to signing, make sure you read every line in your contract. A lot of young women do not know that when you become a title holder, you have to sign a contract. Whenever I became Miss Black Missouri USA 2018, there was like 20 pages in the contract that I had to go through and read. And with me having a legal background, I made sure that I read every line, detail to detail, what I would have as far as expenses out of pocket or through donations, what the prizes would be, what the prize would look like if I were to become Miss Black USA, and things along that line. So make sure you read your contracts line for line. The contracts are not a one fit all, so it is different from pageants. Tip number 3. This is what I call my crown box. A lot of different women have different crown boxes. There are acrylic ones. There are ones that look like this, which are simply makeup bags that your crown can fit into. You want to have one of these because when you want to put your crown in there, you want to put your sash in there, you want to put a couple of other essential items in there. This one, of course, comes with a mirror. I keep a paddle brush in here. I do keep my sash in here as well. I do keep different autograph cards in here for some of my events. If I get gifts and things like that from different individuals. I will be able to put those in here because I didn't want to carry a purse and carry this. This will be all I would carry. So I would put my keys in here. I would put my awards and medals and things in here. That way I don't have to carry a big purse around, and also carry my crown box around as well. And so it just makes it a lot more convenient. And then one of the reasons why I didn't get the acrylic clear crown box is because I knew I would have like my ID in here, my debit card if I needed for backup and things like that. And I just wanted to make sure it was as private as possible. And besides, when I get done with a lot of my events, I'm ready to get comfortable. I'm able to take my crown off and put it away. Some girls wear their crown from the car to the event, and vice versa, from the event to the car. Me, I was one of those individuals. When I was done with my event, done taking pictures, I would definitely go to the bathroom, take the crown off, put it in the box, put my slippers on, and head out the door and hop in the car. Just because, you know, that was the kind of woman I was as a crown holder. I was so normal, and a lot of people definitely appreciated that. It wasn't always pageant patty and pretty and I'm this and I'm that. It was definitely, this is who you really have representing you in your state of Missouri. So tip number 4, make sure that whenever you are working out, whenever you're preparing for nationals, that you are down to the size that you want to be down if your goal is to lose weight. Because the one thing that you don't want to do is get down to a size where your dress no longer fits and you have to get it altered again. A lot of things can get expensive. It's one of the most important tips as well is to make sure you are budgeting. I can't say this enough, because there is no guarantee that you are going to make all of the donations ever. That was one of the greatest challenges I had, was soliciting and asking for a donation. It wasn't because I was afraid to ask or I didn't ask. It was because people either went unresponsive, people said that they would give and they didn't, or people just blatantly ignored my request at all. I remember I wrote to all of our local newspapers. I wrote to all of our local news stations. None of those individuals, none of those people responded. I remember I wrote to our governor at the time. He never responded. I remember I asked family, friends of family, whoever, and only a small percentage, less than 5%, actually donated to the campaign. So you definitely want to make sure that you are budgeting properly. You want to make sure that whatever dress you have, you're either saving up for it or you're getting it at a discounted rate. I had been looking at this one dress for 2 years straight. It was a dress that I couldn't afford. It was so expensive. The dress was like $2,000, which for me, it was very expensive because I was already paying for everything out of pocket. Plus, I lived by myself. Plus, I was paying for graduate school out of pocket as well. So I definitely wanted the dress, but I couldn't afford it. So 2 years went by, and it just so happened that the dress actually went down to $600. That was the cheapest I could find the dress. I even had looked at it a couple of different resellers on Poshmark and on Mercari to try to get the dress for cheaper. However, they were all selling their dress for $800, $900, or $1,000 because they paid the original $2,000 price tag for it. Well, I wasn't going to do that. So I ended up finding a website, end up purchasing the dress for $600. I remember I was just so in awe and so in love with this dress. I didn't purchase it right away. I waited to purchase because I had to make sure that I got that money up. I had to make sure that all the funds was there, that shipping was there, that I was going to be able to get it on time. And I did. And the place where I ended up getting the dress altered, I told them why I was wearing the dress, and they gave me a discount to be able to get my dress altered. And it just all turned out, and it worked out perfectly fine. And I remember I wasn't even going to apply for the prelims for Miss Black USA because I said I would be done after my 3rd year competing in the prelims for Miss USA. I remember I submitted my application after competition was over, and I said, well, whatever happens, happens. And I remember I didn't hear anything for a month. And they ended up giving me a call, and I did my interview over the phone, and they were so impressed and so pleased. And so they said that they would give me a call back whenever they made their final decision, because at that time in Missouri, we didn't have a state director to delegate an official pageant competition. And so everything was done through background checks, your social media, your references, your interview that you did with the board of the pageant and the organization. And so I was the one who was selected. And so that just goes to show you that through prayer and petition, God does make your prayers come true. When you make your requests known to God, He does allow them to come to pass with your faithfulness, with your prayer, when you don't give up. And I am living proof and living testimony that if you keep praying, that God can definitely make this all work out according to His will, which is ultimately greater than our plan. In my mind, I had it to be Miss Missouri USA 2018. However, God allowed me to be Miss Black USA 2018. And I'll make another video regarding my entire pageant experience for Miss Black Missouri USA, and also when I went to compete at Miss Black USA 2018 National Pageant in Washington, D.C. So I hope these tips help you conquer and win all. And I definitely don't want you to forget the message of keep praying, keep fasting, and keep believing. And God will definitely allow any dreams you have to come to pass, as long as it's according to His will, His plan, and His purpose. Peace.